On Christmas Eve, Emily is told she'll be sleeping in the garage, while her sister's boss gets the guest room. The drive to Ann Arbor had taken longer than expected. Snow flurried gently across the windshield of Emily Walker's decade-old Honda Civic as she pulled into her parents' driveway, headlights briefly illuminating the outline of the house she'd grown up in. The holiday lights were tasteful, perfectly symmetrical, just as her mother liked it. Not a bulb out of place. It looked warm and inviting from the outside. But Emily knew better. Inside that house was a family that barely saw her. Not really. Not for years. She stepped out into the cold, her breath visible in the night air. The Civic, despite its age, purred quietly behind her as she shut it off. Her heels crunched against the driveway's thin layer of ice as she opened the trunk and retrieved her overnight bag. Just one night, she reminded herself. She could endure one more night. As she approached the front door, she noticed another car, sleek, black, and impossibly polished. A luxury sedan. Not Veronica's. This one had to belong to someone else. She didn't think much of it until the door opened and the warmth and noise of the Walker household spilled out. "Emily, finally," Lauren called from the hallway, holding a glass of red wine with the casual grace of someone who belonged in every room. "Come in. You remember Brian, don't you?" "I don't think we've met," Emily said politely, stepping in and extending her hand toward the tall man beside her sister. He looked every inch the executive. Tailored coat, Rolex watch glinting even under soft hallway lights. "Brian Maxwell," he said warmly. "Pleasure." "Emily," she replied simply. She wore jeans and a navy sweater, her hair in a neat bun. No makeup, nothing flashy, just the way she liked it. The contrast between her and Lauren in her cherry red designer dress was almost comical. From the kitchen, her mother's voice rang out. "Emily, there you are. I could use your help with the carrots. No welcome home. No hug. Just carrots." Brian and Lauren drifted into the living room to chat with her father, Frank, and her brother, Josh, who was already settled in with a beer. Emily dropped her bag by the stairs and made her way to the kitchen, where Carol was fussing over mashed potatoes and cranberry sauce. "The carrots are there. Peel and slice," her mother said without looking up. "Try to make them even, okay?" Emily bit her tongue. She was 32, a full-grown adult, and yet somehow, in this house, she was always the one stuck peeling vegetables while others mingled in the rooms that mattered. From the kitchen, she could hear the laughter from the living room. "So, how's the view from that new corner office, Brian?" her father asked cheerily. "It's great, right above the river, but I hear the new CEO has an even better one," Brian replied with a chuckle. New CEO. Emily kept her eyes on the carrots, suppressing a smirk. "No one's met him," Lauren interjected. "He's like a ghost, moves pieces on the chessboard but never shows his face." "Her." The word flickered silently in Emily's mind as she kept chopping. "So, Emily," her father called out, suddenly remembering she existed, "how's that little website project you were working on?" "It's coming along," she replied evenly. "There's an entry-level marketing opening at Crestview next quarter," Lauren added, breezing into the kitchen for a wine refill. "Nothing fancy, but it could give you some actual experience. I can put in a word." Emily gripped the knife tighter, her knuckles white. That very morning, her assistant had finalized the internal memos that would go out after the holidays, officially announcing Orion Systems' acquisition of Crestview Technologies, and Lauren's performance report would be landing on Emily's desk by end of next week. "I'm okay with my current situation," Emily replied calmly. Lauren shrugged and walked back out. Emily turned to the carrots, breathing in slow, measured counts. She could endure it. She always had. Later, as she helped set the table, she heard her mother whispering near the guest bedroom. "We've put Brian in here, of course," Carol said. "Your father and I are in our room. Josh has his. You'll take yours." "What about Emily?" Lauren asked. "Well, the couch in the den is too short and cluttered with gifts. I thought the garage would work, just for one night." "Perfect," Lauren laughed. "It suits her. She's used to roughing it anyway." Emily's fingers clenched around the edge of a dinner plate. The dining room sparkled with effort. Silverware gleamed. Napkins folded just so. The centerpiece was made of fresh pine cones and cranberries. Every detail curated. And yet, the seating told its own story. Brian sat at the head of the table, flanked by her father and Lauren. Carol sat beside him, practically glowing. Josh was nearby. Emily was placed at the far end, next to an empty chair, almost as if she didn't belong to the same family. Conversation flowed easily, but only around Brian, Lauren, and their work at Crestview. Emily's attempts to chime in were met with polite nods, then quick pivots back to more relevant topics. As the plates were cleared and dessert served, Carol brought up sleeping arrangements. "Brian, we've set up the guest room for you," she beamed. "Fresh sheets and towels." "Lauren, you'll take your old room," Frank added. "Josh is already settled in." All eyes turned to Emily. "We've set up the garage for you," Carol said, her voice too cheerful. "It's not ideal, but there's a cot and plenty of blankets, just for one night." Emily stared at her mother, expression unreadable. "The garage isn't heated," she said flatly. "You can use one of the space heaters," Frank offered, as if it were a great kindness. "It won't be that bad." "The garage?" Brian repeated, surprised. "It's freezing outside." "She's always been the adventurous one," Lauren said lightly, sipping wine. Emily rose from the table slowly. "Excuse me," she said. In the hallway, she pulled out her phone. The message from Tessa was already waiting. "Final version of internal memo ready. Want me to hold till morning?" Emily stared at the screen. For 5 years, she'd built her empire in silence, endured the dismissiveness, bit her tongue, slept in budget hotels while negotiating billion-dollar deals. Tonight, they'd banished her to a freezing garage. She typed one line. "Send it. Tonight." As Emily settles into the garage, her sister's boss receives an unexpected email, and everything begins to unravel. The garage was just as Emily remembered from childhood, cluttered, dusty, and freezing. Storage bins lined the walls, some labeled in her mother's neat handwriting: Christmas decor, old books, Josh's sports gear. In the center stood a sagging cot topped with a few mismatched blankets. A small, rattling space heater buzzed in the corner, doing little to cut through the Michigan cold. She stood there for a moment, her overnight bag still slung over her shoulder, staring at the makeshift accommodations. A distant part of her mind found it almost poetic. Years of being overlooked, of being deemed the disappointment, now culminated in this physical separation, not even granted a couch. Just a cold cot, hidden away with forgotten ornaments and expired paint cans. She pulled out her phone and tapped a secure app. The login screen flickered open. A few taps later, she was reading the final version of the internal memo. Subject: Orion Systems finalizes Crestview Technologies acquisition. Her fingers hovered over the Approve button. Before she could press it, the garage door creaked open. Brian stepped in, ducking slightly as the cold air rushed in behind him. "Sorry to intrude," he said, rubbing his hands together. "Just wanted to check if you were okay out here. It's really cold." Emily looked up slowly. She hadn't expected this. "I'm fine," she said. "I've endured worse." Brian gave a small nod, glancing around the room, clearly uncomfortable. "This seems a bit harsh," he said. Garage sleeping arrangements? On Christmas Eve? Emily shrugged. It's just one night. Before Brian could respond, his phone buzzed. Then again, and again. He frowned, pulling it from his coat pocket. Strange. Multiple messages from our executive team on Christmas Eve? As he scanned the screen, his expression changed. Confusion, then disbelief. This says, he began, then trailed off. Crestview's been acquired? By Orion Systems? He looked up at her, eyes narrowing as realization began to dawn. His phone rang, and he answered instinctively. Brian Maxwell. Yes, I saw the emails. No, I wasn't aware. The CEO wants to speak with me? Now? Emily remained seated, watching him carefully. As he listened, his gaze shifted back to her. She's right here, he said into the phone, voice unsteady. A pause. She's in the garage. He lowered the phone slightly, mouth parted in stunned silence. Emily stood, extended her hand calmly. May I? Wordlessly, he handed over the phone. This is Emily Walker, she said, her voice cool and measured. The voice she used in boardrooms and investor calls. The voice her family had never heard. Yes, the timeline has changed. I'm with Brian now. Proceed with the full announcement to department heads tonight. Public release remains scheduled for tomorrow. She ended the call, handed the phone back, and looked him squarely in the eye. You're the CEO, he said slowly. I am. You bought Crestview. I did. He looked around again, as if trying to reconcile the freezing garage with what he now knew. But you're here, on a cot, with a space heater. Yes, she said. Ironic, isn't it? The door to the house opened again. Lauren stepped in, clutching her phone, face pale. Brian, did you get the emails? She asked, eyes wide. Something's happening with the company. They're saying we've been acquired. Her voice trailed off as she noticed the tension in the room. Brian's expression. Emily's calm stance. What's going on? Emily exhaled. Perhaps we should discuss this inside. It's rather cold out here. Back in the kitchen, Frank was drying dishes. Carol wiped down the counter. Josh loaded the dishwasher. None of them noticed the change in atmosphere until the trio stepped back in. There's been a change of plans, Emily said evenly. Her mother glanced up, blinking. Is something wrong? Brian's phone rang again. He looked at Emily, silently asking permission. You should answer it, she said. It's probably your retention package. He raised an eyebrow but answered, this time putting it on speaker. Brian, it's Victor from Finance. Have you seen the announcement? Orion Systems just finalized acquisition. CEO's initiating department head calls tonight. We're scrambling. Any idea what's going on? Silence fell across the kitchen like a curtain dropping. 5 pairs of eyes turned to Emily. I'll call you back, Brian murmured, ending the call. Lauren's voice was high, brittle. Crystal. Emily, what is he talking about? Emily looked around the room, at the house where she'd felt invisible for years, at the people who'd written her off. I'm the CEO and founder of Orion Systems, she said simply. As of this week, I own Crestview Technologies. The silence was deafening. Carol's dishcloth slipped from her hand. Frank's mouth opened, then closed. Josh froze, holding a dish midair. Lauren let out a shaky laugh. That's not possible, she said. Orion is massive. It is, Emily nodded. And I built it. Frank found his voice first. But you dropped out of college. You've been working on some small thing. That small thing now spans 4 continents, Emily replied. It hasn't been small in years. You're lying, Lauren said, though her voice had lost certainty. Emily pulled out her phone again, opened a secure dashboard, and turned the screen to face them. "This is live data from our global network," she said. "Current valuation, 11, 2 billion. Staff, 7,300. Nerd, including, as of now, every employee at Crestview." Brian stared at the screen, then nodded slowly. "The cloud infrastructure changes. The new strategy. That was all you." "Every bit of it." Carol sank into a chair, looking overwhelmed. "Why didn't you tell us?" Emily's face didn't soften. "Because you never asked." "But we were concerned," Frank said. "We wanted you to succeed." "No," she said, calm but firm. "You wanted me to be Lauren. When I chose a different path, you decided I was failing. You never once asked about what I was building." Lauren opened her mouth to protest, then closed it again. "You brought your boss here tonight to impress him," Emily continued. "You had me sleep in the garage to make room for him. That's the level of regard you've had for me." "I didn't know," Brian said quickly. "If I had, I never would have." "I know," Emily said. "You didn't." Carol reached forward, her voice almost pleading. "If we had known—" "Then what?" Emily interrupted gently. "You would have treated me better because I had money? That doesn't make it better. It makes it worse." They fell silent again. Outside, snow dusted the windows. Inside, years of pretense crumbled. Josh finally spoke. "What happens now, with Crestview?" Emily glanced at him. The first genuine question of the night. "Business continues," she said. "Some restructuring, but no major layoffs." Lauren's face paled further. "Am I fired?" Emily looked at her sister, the same person who had laughed about the garage, who had offered her an entry-level opportunity. "No, you're good at your job. You'll report to a new director, but your position is secure." Relief washed over Lauren's face, then worry. "Will people know we're sisters?" "That's up to you," Emily said. "I've kept my identity private until now, for business, not personal reasons." Frank cleared his throat. "Where do you actually live?" "You always said you had a small apartment downtown," Carol added. "I have a penthouse on the waterfront," Emily replied, "and homes in New York and San Francisco." Carol looked like she might faint. Brian's phone buzzed again. He glanced at Emily. "It's the board chairman." "Take it," she said. "They'll want answers." He stepped out, still dazed. Lauren looked down at her hands. "Are you really going to keep me on? Or was that just for show?" "I meant what I said," Emily replied. "You're good at what you do." Lauren nodded slowly. "I've been horrible to you." "Yes," Emily agreed softly. "You have." Lauren swallowed. "And now you're my boss." Emily looked at her calmly. "Life is full of unexpected twists." Veronica stares at her, pale. "That's not possible." Now that the truth is out, the family struggles to comprehend the reality and confront the years of damage. The living room had never been quieter. The fireplace crackled softly in the background, casting flickers of gold across the family photos lining the mantel. Lauren's college graduation, Josh's football trophies, the one picture of Emily where her face was half hidden behind a holiday wreath. Carol sat with her hands folded tightly in her lap, staring at nothing. Frank stood near the window, arms crossed, watching snow fall in slow spirals. Josh leaned against the staircase, eyes flicking between his sisters. Lauren remained frozen, perched on the edge of the couch. Her glass of wine, long forgotten, rested dangerously close to the edge of the coffee table. And Emily? She stood, straight-backed and composed in the center of it all. Not smug, not vindicated. just still. "I don't understand," Carol finally said. Her voice was soft, as if she were trying not to wake something fragile. "Why keep this from us, Emily?" Emily looked at her mother, the woman who'd always had a compliment ready for Lauren, who'd always sighed when Emily didn't conform. "I didn't hide it to hurt you," she said. "I just stopped trying to prove myself to people who'd already decided who I was." "But we were proud of you," Frank said, defensive. "We just thought you were figuring things out in your own way." Emily tilted her head. "Dad, you asked me if I wanted help getting a receptionist job last Thanksgiving." "That was just trying to be supportive," he replied, but his voice faltered. "No," she said. "It was you assuming that's all I could handle." Josh shifted. "I mean, come on. You never talked about your work. You just said consulting or tech stuff." "Because every time I did, I was interrupted or ignored," Emily said. "I stopped sharing because I realized no one was really listening." Lauren finally spoke. "You think we all just dismissed you?" Emily turned to her. "You mocked my work at every turn. You gave me career advice like I was a child. You planned to put me in marketing under you." "I didn't know," Lauren said. Her voice cracked. "I didn't know you were this." "That's the point," Emily said, quieter now. "You didn't want to know." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Carol whispered, "I feel like we failed you." Emily didn't answer. She walked to the far wall, fingers brushing the spines of old books. One of them, a dusty, leather-bound collection of Robert Frost poems, had been a gift from her in high school. It still had the ribbon she'd tied around it. "I used to wonder what was wrong with me," she said. "Why I couldn't be more like Lauren, why everything I did felt invisible here." She turned to face them again. "But I wasn't invisible. You just chose not to see me." Carol looked stricken. "We didn't mean to hurt you." Emily gave a soft, sad smile. "But you did." Josh stepped forward. "Look, maybe we've all been stuck in roles we didn't ask for. I've always been the peacekeeper. Lauren's been the achiever. You were labeled the rebel, the dropout." "And now?" Emily asked. He gave a small laugh. "Now I realize you're the only one who actually did something real." Lauren rubbed her arms like she was cold. "I've spent years climbing at Crestview, and now it's yours. How am I supposed to process that?" Emily's tone remained calm. "You're not being punished. I don't want revenge. I want boundaries, respect." "But you are in charge of my future now," Lauren said, her voice tight. "No," Emily corrected. "You are. I'm just the person who finally got to call a few shots." Frank cleared his throat. "What you've accomplished. It's impressive. Truly. But we're your parents. It's hard not to feel left behind." "You were never behind," Emily said. "You were just never with me." Carol finally rose from the couch. She crossed to Emily, reaching hesitantly for her hand. "We should have been better," she said. "We see that now." Emily didn't move away, but she didn't reach back either. From the stairs, Josh added, "You know, I think part of what stings is realizing you never needed us." Emily turned to him, her eyes softening. "I always wanted you," she said. "I just stopped needing people who didn't believe in me." The words lingered in the air, more weighty than anger could have ever been. Lauren swallowed. "So, what happens next?" "I'm going back to my hotel," Emily said simply. "I didn't plan on staying more than tonight." "But it's Christmas," Carol protested. Emily met her mother's eyes. "And I was sleeping in the garage." No one argued that. She walked to the hallway, picking up her overnight bag. As she slipped on her coat, Brian reappeared from the den, phone still in hand. "They're thrilled," he said awkwardly. "Board wants to meet with you next week. Press embargo lifts in the morning." "Good," Emily said, adjusting her scarf. He hesitated, then added, "You handled this with more grace than I would have." She gave a small smile. "I've had practice." "Wait," Lauren said, standing quickly. "You're leaving? Just like that?" Emily looked at her, and something in her face softened. "I came here hoping to be part of this family," she said, "but I think I need to accept what it actually is, not what I wish it was." Carol's voice trembled. "Are you saying you don't want to come back?" Emily paused at the door. "I'm saying I need space, time. Maybe one day we'll rebuild something, but it starts with truth." She looked around once more, the living room filled with familiar faces who now saw her in a new, uncomfortable light. Then she turned to go. Emily starts to leave. "I'll find a hotel." Emily agrees to stay the night, but insists no one should sleep in that garage, not even for one night. Emily had her hand on the door handle when Josh called after her. "Wait, at least let me drive you to the hotel. It's still snowing." She turned back. His voice didn't carry guilt, just quiet concern. "I'll manage," she said. But even as she stepped outside, the wind caught her coat like a warning. The snow was heavier now, the streets covered in fresh powder. Her Civic's windshield was iced over. The prospect of driving felt less like freedom and more like punishment. "Emily?" Carol's voice called softly behind her. She turned again. "We—" Her mother hesitated, then straightened her spine. "We made up the guest room for Brian, but he's just told us he's heading to a hotel. For space," he thought. "We might need it." Emily's eyes flicked toward the hallway. Brian had already put on his coat, holding his phone like a lifeline. "I'll be nearby," he said to her, voice low. "Text if you need anything." She gave a short nod. Brian offered a quiet smile to the family, then let himself out. "I'm sorry about the garage," Carol said quickly. "That was unthoughtful." "It was cruel," Emily corrected, though her tone was mild. "But I accept the offer of a bed." Carol stepped aside as Emily re-entered the house. The warmth inside felt different now, not welcoming but raw. They stood there in silence for a moment before Emily added, "No one should sleep in that garage, not even for one night." Frank cleared his throat. Agreed. Upstairs, the guest room smelled faintly of lavender and pine. The sheets were crisp. A single red bow was taped to the headboard, a leftover decoration. Emily set her bag down but didn't unpack. She sat on the edge of the bed, her thoughts racing too fast for rest. A soft knock interrupted the quiet. Lauren poked her head in. "Got a minute?" Emily gestured wordlessly. Lauren stepped inside, closing the door behind her. For once, she looked unsure. Not the polished, put-together marketing executive, but a woman frayed at the edges. I know I'm not exactly your favorite person right now," she began, sitting on the opposite edge of the bed. "That's accurate," Emily said. Lauren gave a faint, humorless smile. "Yeah, fair." They sat in silence for a moment. "I wanted to explain," Lauren said finally. "About earlier. The garage thing. I pushed for it. Mom wasn't sure, but I insisted." Emily said nothing. Lauren's voice cracked. "I didn't want Brian thinking less of me. I didn't want him to see you and think I was lesser." Emily blinked. "So you put me in the garage to boost your credibility?" "I didn't think of it like that. I told myself it was about space, convenience. But yeah, that was the reason." Emily leaned back slightly. You've always needed to win, even if it meant stepping on me. I know, Lauren whispered, and I hate it. There was silence again. I've spent years trying to be the best, the most successful, the one they were proud of. Lauren shook her head. And the truth is, I was terrified that you'd outshine me. You didn't think I could, Emily said. No, I really didn't, Lauren admitted. And now that you have, I don't know how to see you as anything but competition. Emily's voice was quiet. Then don't. Lauren looked at her, confused. Don't see me as competition, Emily said. See me as your sister. Or don't see me at all. But stop reducing me to a threat. Lauren exhaled. You're asking me to unlearn a lifetime. I know, Emily said. I'm asking anyway. Lauren nodded slowly, eyes glossy. I'm sorry. I believe that, Emily said. But it's not enough. Not yet. Lauren stood to leave, pausing at the door. Would it be okay if we started over? Eventually, Emily said. Just not tonight. Lauren nodded once, then left, the door clicking gently behind her. Later that night, Emily sat alone in the kitchen, cradling a mug of tea. The rest of the house was quiet. She heard footsteps and turned to see Frank entering, his hands in his robe pockets. Couldn't sleep, he said. Same. He poured himself coffee, old habit, and joined her at the table. I've been thinking, he said. That's a start, Emily replied dryly. Frank gave a small chuckle. Guess I deserved that. She didn't respond. I didn't realize how much I dismissed you, he said, looking into his mug. I always thought I was treating my kids equally, but maybe I wasn't treating you fairly. No, Emily said. You weren't. I wish I could say I didn't know, but I did. I just ignored it. Emily raised an eyebrow. You weren't the kind of daughter I expected, he admitted. You didn't follow the map, and that scared me. I followed my own, she said. It just didn't look like yours. He nodded. I see that now, and I'm proud of you, not just for the company, but for who you've become. That caught her off guard. I appreciate that, she said. They sat in silence for a while, sipping their drinks. Finally, Frank added, You don't have to forgive us tonight, but I hope one day you will. We'll see, Emily said, but her tone had softened. Upstairs, Carol peeked into Lauren's room. She was lying awake, staring at the ceiling. Can't sleep either? Carol whispered. Lauren shook her head. Carol came in and sat on the bed. Did you know? Lauren asked. About Emily? Carol shook her head. Not a clue. I just thought she was drifting. Lauren gave a dry laugh. She was running a billion-dollar empire. I underestimated her, Carol said. We all did. Lauren looked at her mother. I was cruel. Yes, Carol agreed gently. But you can change. I'm going to try. Carol squeezed her hand. Then that's enough, for now. Downstairs, Emily stood by the window, looking out at the snow-covered street. Her phone buzzed with a message from Brian. Board's behind you. Merry Christmas, boss. She smiled faintly and typed a simple reply. Thank you. Merry Christmas. She looked back at the sleeping house. Maybe, just maybe, there was something worth rebuilding here. Christmas morning dawns with awkward peace, but a new sense of honesty. The morning sun pushed through the frosted windows, casting long golden streaks across the wooden floors. Snow still blanketed the front yard, quieting the neighborhood under its peaceful hush. Inside the Walker home, the scent of fresh coffee and cinnamon rolls drifted through the house, mingling with the uncertain stillness that had replaced last night's emotional storm. Emily stood alone in the kitchen, stirring a second cup of coffee. Her phone buzzed softly on the counter, a notification from her team. Apex acquisition confirmed. Official press release scheduled for 10 a.m. EST. It was done. She tucked the phone away and took a slow sip. Her fingers curled around the mug's warmth. Despite everything, the house felt different today. Not quite home. Not yet. But not hostile either. Carol entered the kitchen, adjusting the sleeves of her robe. She paused when she saw Emily, as if unsure how to greet her. "Merry Christmas," she said carefully. Emily looked up. "Merry Christmas." Carol moved to pour herself coffee. "You slept okay?" "Better than I expected." A brief, shared smile passed between them. Faint, but real. Frank wandered in moments later, rumpled but freshly shaved. He offered Emily a quiet nod, then took his mug and sat at the small breakfast table. "We're doing presents soon," Carol said after a moment. "Josh just got up. Lauren's. Getting ready." "All right," Emily replied. She turned to head toward the living room when her mother stopped her. "I didn't know what to get you this year," Carol admitted. "I almost didn't try." Emily paused, glancing back. Carol continued. "But then I found this, and it felt right." She handed over a thin, rectangular package wrapped in plain gold paper. No bow, just a careful crease. Emily opened it slowly. Inside was a framed copy of a newspaper article. The headline read, "The Woman Behind Orion, Emily Walker's Silent Empire." It was from a month ago, a rare feature she'd agreed to under pressure from her PR team. "I kept it," Carol said softly, "even before we knew everything." Emily ran her fingers across the glass, then met her mother's eyes. "Thank you." Carol nodded, blinking fast. "I thought maybe you'd want it on your wall." The living room felt warmer that morning, not just from the fireplace, but from a new, tentative energy among them. Josh was already on the floor near the tree, handing out color-coded packages like he had since they were kids. Lauren sat beside him, subdued but present, her usual sharp confidence replaced by something quieter. "Okay," Josh announced. "Emily goes first." She raised an eyebrow. "Since when?" "Since this year." He grinned. "Come on." She opened the box slowly. Inside was a thick scarf, hand-knit, soft, a deep forest green. "I made that," Lauren said suddenly. "Well, attempted. It's uneven." Emily looked at her. "You made this?" Lauren nodded. "Started it in September. Figured you might be cold in all those offices you run." Emily smiled, touched. "It's perfect." Lauren let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. Carol handed Emily another package. "From your father and me." It was a leather-bound notebook, the kind she liked, and a pen with her initials engraved. "I always thought those things were silly," Frank said. "But your brother told me you like them." "I do," she said, surprised. Frank cleared his throat. "Good. Then I got lucky." Emily reached beside the tree and brought forward a stack of neatly wrapped gifts. She handed one to each of them. "Mine aren't fancy," she said. "But I chose them carefully." Josh opened his first, a signed first-edition copy of The Intelligent Investor. He gasped. "Are you serious?" Emily smiled. "I thought it might help with your MBA program." He beamed. Lauren opened hers, a minimalist fountain pen and a Japanese leather notebook with her initials embossed. "You always talked about journaling," Emily said. "Thought this might be the year you actually start." Lauren looked at the gift like it was sacred. Carol and Frank opened theirs together. A photo album, filled with pictures Emily had kept over the years, Most they'd never seen. The kids at the lake, old birthdays, candid moments long forgotten. At the back was a handwritten note. For the memories we missed, and those we might still make. Frank read it aloud, voice cracking. Thank you, sweetheart. Carol wiped her eyes. They sat for a while, opening the rest of the presents. Small things, warm things. No one said much. They didn't need to. Later, while Josh cleaned up wrapping paper, Lauren sat with Emily by the fire. I keep thinking, Lauren said, about how I saw success, how narrow my idea of it was. Emily didn't speak, letting her sister work through it. I thought the only path was approval, applause, titles. She shook her head. You built something lasting. I built presentations. Emily turned to her. You're good at what you do, but you've never had to figure out who you are without applause. Lauren looked at her. And you did? I had no choice. Lauren nodded slowly. It must have been lonely. Sometimes. They sat quietly. Can I ask what Orion actually does? Lauren said after a moment. I've read the reports, but I want to hear it from you. Emily smiled, surprised. It's an infrastructure platform. We help mid-sized companies move into cloud-native systems without losing legacy data. But that's just the surface. What I really care about is giving people access, leveling the field. Lauren looked impressed. That's big. It started small, one customer at a time. And now you've bought my company, Lauren said, half laughing. Technically, I bought your CEO. Emily smirked. You just came with the package. Lauren laughed, genuinely this time. Emily joined in. For the first time in years, it felt like they weren't performing, just sharing space as sisters. As the sun rose higher, Emily stood by the window sipping coffee. Frank approached her, hands in his pockets. I know I've said it, but I need to say it again. She looked at him. We were wrong about you, he said. Completely wrong. Emily nodded once. I know. He smiled sadly. You didn't deserve the way we treated you. No, she agreed. But I survived it. He studied her face. You're stronger than I gave you credit for. Emily looked back at the tree, the family behind her. I had to be. Frank hesitated, then added, Would you come back next year? I don't know, she said honestly. But I'm here now. He nodded. And we're glad you are. Later, as Emily gathered her things to head out, Carol pressed a small package into her hand. I forgot this earlier, she said. Emily opened it to find a key. Old, brass, familiar. The key to the garage? She asked, confused. Carol smiled. Thought you might want to keep it, as a reminder. Emily looked at it for a long time, then nodded. I'll hold on to it. Emily quietly says, This isn't forgiveness, but it's a beginning. 6 months later, Emily returns for a summer barbecue and finds her family changed in quiet but meaningful ways. The Michigan summer had arrived like a long exhale, gentle breezes, warm sunlight, and fireflies blinking lazily at dusk. Lake Leelanau shimmered in the afternoon glow, its quiet waves lapping at the shoreline where the Walker family had rented a modest lake house for the week. Emily stood on the wooden porch, watching her brother man the grill while Lauren fussed with a fruit platter. Their parents chatted nearby under a striped canopy, paper plates in hand. It was the kind of slow, familiar chaos that could only happen when no one was trying too hard. She hadn't planned to come back so soon, but the invitation, a handwritten letter from her father, surprisingly heartfelt, had arrived in April, and for once it didn't feel like pressure or performance, just a quiet ask. So here she was. No announcements, no titles, just Emily. She sipped her iced tea and stepped down into the yard. "Burger?" Josh called. "Only if it's medium rare." "Do I look like an amateur?" He smirked. Lauren joined her by the picnic table, offering a watermelon cube. "Today's been shockingly normal." Emily raised an eyebrow. "Is that a complaint?" "Not at all," Lauren smiled. "I like normal." They sat together, watching the lake shimmer. "You look less armored these days," Lauren said. Emily laughed. "I've been sleeping in real beds lately. Helps." Lauren grinned. "I meant emotionally. You seem lighter." "Maybe I am." There was a pause before Lauren added, "Thank you for not replacing me." Emily glanced at her. "At Crestview," Lauren clarified. "I know you had every reason to." "You're doing the work," Emily said. "That's all that matters." "I'm trying," Lauren said. "And I'm learning. A lot." Emily nodded. "Good." They fell into a comfortable silence. Later that evening, Emily found Frank sitting alone at the dock, feet dangling over the water. She joined him without a word. He handed her a cold beer. "You ever think we'd end up here?" "Honestly?" She took the bottle. "No." He smiled. "Me neither." They watched the sun dip behind the trees. "I read that article again," he said. "The one about you. It still blows my mind." Emily looked out at the lake. "It blows my mind too sometimes." "You know," he said, "I used to think success was about who made the most noise. And now, I think it's about who sleeps best at night." Emily chuckled. "Then I'm getting close." He turned to her. "You ever think about selling it all, Orion?" "Sometimes," she admitted. "But not yet." "Still something to prove?" "No," she said, looking over at him. "Still something to build." Frank nodded, understanding more now than he ever had. "I'm proud of you," he said. "Not just because of what you built, but how you carried it." Emily smiled, soft and grateful. "Thanks, Dad." They sat a while longer, watching the stars appear. Inside the lake house, Carol flipped pancakes the next morning, while humming an old tune. Emily entered the kitchen, barefoot, hair still wet from a morning swim. "I made extra," Carol said, sliding a plate toward her. Emily took a seat. "Thanks." As she ate, Carol set a small envelope next to her coffee. Emily looked up, curious. "What's this?" Carol hesitated. "I signed us up for a mother-daughter writing retreat. Nothing fancy, just a weekend thing. No pressure." Emily opened the envelope. Inside was a brochure. "Finding Your Voice, a weekend of reflection for women over 50, and those who love them." She smiled, surprised. "You want to go?" she asked. "I want to listen," Carol said. Emily held her mother's gaze for a long moment, then nodded. "Okay." On the last evening, the family gathered around a bonfire by the lake. S'mores supplies littered the picnic table, and the air smelled like marshmallows and pine. Josh strummed a guitar lazily. Lauren read aloud from a book of bad poetry she'd found in a gas station. Everyone groaned dramatically at each stanza. Emily leaned back in a lawn chair, head tilted to the stars. Her phone was in her bag, turned off. No alerts, no calls. Just this moment. Frank passed her a graham cracker sandwich. "Last one." "I earned it," she said, taking a bite. "Absolutely." The fire crackled. Carol passed around mugs of cider. "To family," she said. Everyone echoed it. Emily lifted her mug slightly. As the night deepened, Josh asked, "So, what's next for Orion?" Emily thought for a moment. Global expansion, she said. Then maybe mentorship, helping others build. Lauren nodded. Sounds right. And what about you? Emily asked her. I'm still figuring that out, Lauren said, but for once I'm not pretending I already know. They smiled. Frank tossed another log on the fire. You ever think about moving closer? Emily shrugged. Maybe. Carol perked up. We could turn the attic into a guest room. Emily laughed. As long as it's not the garage. Never again, they all said in unison. The laughter rose, real and full. Back inside, Emily packed her bag slowly. She tucked the framed article her mother gave her into a side sleeve. She paused at the dresser and pulled out a small item, the brass key to the garage. She turned it over in her hand, its edges worn smooth. She could throw it away. She could leave it behind. Instead, she placed it in her purse, not as a grudge, as a marker of where she'd been and how far she'd come. Emily looks out over the lake, the brass key in her hand. She doesn't throw it away. Don't forget to like and subscribe if this resonated with you, and share with someone who might need a reminder that sometimes the people who dismiss your dreams are the ones who most need to see you succeed. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, your worth isn't determined by others' ability to see it.